Hello, fine people, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Today we are talking about our two Edelweiss Analytics subscriptions. There is Basecamp and Summit, and we're going to basically relatively quickly walk through what each of those subscription levels consist of. Just a quick kind of bigger picture thing. Essentially, for the analytics tools to work, we receive a nightly upload from your point of sale system that gets fed directly into the analytics tools, whether that's your comparable titles area or the graphs and tools contained within the analytics page, that sort of stuff. So most book industry specific point of sale systems will have this as basically an automatic easy feature. There are point of sale systems out there that a lot of people use, probably because they're cheaper, which is totally legitimate, but they oftentimes don't have the capability to get us the data feeds that we need. If you are not sure, if you just want to email us at support@abovethetreeline.com, then we can let you know. We also have a list available as well. There are point of sale systems that can get that feed to us, if it's not a book industry specific one. So you can do kind of a custom sort of thing, and we can help you with that and provide our data feed requirements and that sort of thing. So again, we have the mountaineering thing going on. Our company name is Above the Tree Line, and it's basically John, who owns the company, loves mountains, and also, there's a saying within. I live in Colorado. It's snowing very hard today, but there's a saying for hikers: when in doubt, go higher. And it's essentially, a way for you to rise above that tree line to be able to see what's around you, see which direction you need to go. So it's a bit of a metaphor, but here we are. So Basecamp is the basic version, and then the Summit is going to be the thing with all the bells and whistles. So Basecamp is essentially a tool that takes your point of sale data and feeds it into the comparable titles field in Edelweiss Plus. So you'll be able to see your first 3 months worth of sales, first 3 months of average inventory level, and then lifetime sales, last year sales, current on hand and current on order data. And that's basically the idea, is that this is information that you're going to look up anyways as a conscientious buyer, so we just make it really fast. So it's there for you while you're going through your catalogs and deciding, what to order and all that kind of stuff. Comp titles can be extremely helpful if the publishers provide helpful comp titles. There's a fine art to that, and some of them do it better than others. You can always add your own comparable titles if you want to see those sales, which can be really helpful if you're at home going through a catalog and you don't have access to your point of sale system, because they're not all on the cloud, so to speak. One other feature is we can feed your inventory data to the IndieCommerce folks. Just since we have it anyways, we can just kind of pass it along. And this is an example of what that would look like. So these guys have an event coming up for the Pam Houston title, so they have quite a lot on hand. But I use this all the time. I work a block away from my favorite bookstore, and if I want to know if I should take that walk down the block to go buy a book, I just check their website real quick to see if they have it, because I'm lazy. That's just how it goes. But it's a really handy sort of thing. I really appreciate it when stores have that. Basecamp pricing is $25 per month per store. Just a nice, simple base fee. Nice and cheap, I think, for what you get. There are definitely stores who had never considered using Basecamp, and then once they get a hold of it, they're just like, they can't even imagine going through Edelweiss and going through the catalogs without it. So it does really speed up the process quite a lot. The Summit level, so that's the Basecamp, what we just went through. So it's really just a few features. It's the comp titles And then if you have an IndieCommerce site, we can feed data to that. Basically, Summit has a ton of tools available to you. And so I was a buyer at a bookstore before the analytics stuff existed. And it was what it was. But then when Above the Tree Line came out, I was given the instructions to learn how to use it, and I did very well, and our store became extremely profitable because of that. Essentially, it made me a smarter buyer. I knew what to get rid of very quickly, and I knew, the things that I was trying to bring in that weren't working and that sort of stuff. Extremely helpful, and of course, we have a lot of different tools to allow you to learn how to use it and that sort of thing. So we're going to break this down a little bit. So there are 2 market analysis tools, a few more, but these are the 2 main ones. So there's the most popular titles and the not yet released titles. So basically what you can do is, if you look at that top graph there, it's the top 500 titles selling across the indie trade market in the last 3 months. You can change markets according to your region. Those are based on the regional associations. You can look at the library market. You could look at the UK market if you like. People do use this in the UK, but basically it's just a nice visual representation of the top selling titles out there in the market, what you have, what you don't have, what you're doing well with, what is sinking. What everybody else is selling these titles really well, but you are not, and why. Like you'll have to decide why. It could be that it's not your type of book, or it could be because it's hidden. It's not displayed well or something like that. But it gives you that opportunity to know and to look. And then the not yet released titles is basically a heads up. It's a way to crowdsource your frontlist buying, I guess. I just did air quotes about crowdsourcing, but basically it's a way. It's like a checks and balances for the frontlist titles that are coming out, whether or not you've ordered them, and you can see the top 200 titles coming out in the next month. Show me those, and I don't have, in this case, 35% on order. That's kind of a lot. So I might take a look at those and see if they're titles that I missed or that I thought look like dogs, but it turns out everybody else thinks they look great. So maybe I'm wrong. It's a great way just to see, what your colleagues are excited about is what it comes down to. You can also do a stock analysis, so a way to measure your inventory and how those titles perform for you, whether or not they're selling. If they've been sitting there for way too long, then you'll be able to see a list of titles that should go away very quickly. I'm not showing here. There's an actual list down below the graph that you can open up that will give you lots of different data and allow you to create a list or add to an order and all that fun stuff. So if you are looking to do a return pull of your kids sections, for example, like on this, you could just go in, find a list of all the titles that have been sitting on the shelf for way too long, get rid of them. And then, of course, there's plenty of tools to find out what should be there instead. Again, so I always like to stress when we're talking about this sort of thing that we consider this to be a descriptive rather than a prescriptive tool. So essentially we show you what's going on, and then you can make those decisions based on your experience and your knowledge of your store and your community. Really what it comes down to is that, yes, your store is a special snowflake. Of course it is. But you also buy books from the same places as everybody else. So having that good mix of titles and being able to see really quickly what your customers just are not interested in can be extremely helpful. And of course, seeing what they are interested in as well. What we're looking at here, there's the dark blue little sliver of pie there in the graph, is what would be considered stale at this store, and it's a really small slice. That's uncommon, unfortunately. We did a tour through all the different accounts that we have and saw that the average stale slice of the pie here is 25%. So 25% of most stores haven't sold in like a year, which is a lot. The book industry is fun because, we always hear, if you don't carry blank book, then you're not a quote unquote real bookstore, which is not true. But we have that feeling like there's this romance to it. When in reality, what you're seeing is oftentimes there are those titles that your customers may want to see, but they don't necessarily want to buy. They already have it, or it's just not something that they're interested in. And being able to take that for what it's worth is quite important, I think. So that was stock analysis. You can also see the historical overview, which will show you trends. You can really quickly see your turns. At this store, there's a very clear seasonality thing happening here, and it's pretty consistent year to year, which is nice. Although you can see in the second graph over, their inventory bumped up really high in November. Probably preparation for the holiday, although their sales were not commensurate with that increase in inventory. So, a bit of a learning moment for them maybe. They probably couldn't shelve anything during November. This is my favorite graph. It's a category performance comparison. So it's a way for you to take, it takes your entire inventory and explodes it out according to either BuyZac categories or your point of sale categories. The BuyZac is pretty cool because you can see all the subgenres. So like within the cooking, which is showing as overstocked here, you can see, which type of cookbooks are overstocked or which ones sell well for you. Which ones do you think sell well? So you've stocked them very strongly, but they're not necessarily selling like you would hope. I often see this graph as a kind of a view into a buyer's mind. Like they think history sells great. And then they come in here and like, okay, well, not especially, like not as great as I think. And the space that it's taking up and the money that it's taking up is not commensurate with its sales. So maybe let's do some corrections here. Just a nice visual representation of that. And so what's cool here is that you can pinpoint those problem categories, and you select cooking, for example, and it changes the entire page. The analytics page will change to show just cooking books. So you'll be able to see your stock analysis. What do I have that I shouldn't have? What's been sitting there for too long, and then scroll up and see what's coming out that I don't have on order, what's selling everywhere else is doing well. Let me check that out. Maybe I'll bring those in. So it's a pretty easy way to go in and do a basic swap out. I can return these 30 books and bring in these 20 books, and then I'll have a couple more face outs and everybody's happy. Then the restock support, most point of sale systems have a nice way to create a purchase order based on the titles that you've sold. That's kind of the point oftentimes of a point of sale system. This is a way to check that, and to also, there was a store who was telling us how much they use this, because if the buyer cannot do her restocking orders at the store because she's there by herself, and so she does them at night, which is unfortunate for her, frankly. But she can do it this way because she doesn't have access to her point of sale system when she's at home. But she can just see those titles here and create an order and just send it through Edelweiss like she usually does. And just a real kind of game changer for her. And then if you are a multi-store organization, you have multiple locations, there are tools as well to analyze turns and inventory at your different branches, if you want to call them that, and see what's on hand at one store and not at another, and how they're performing there, and maybe they can be switched around if that's easy for you to do. Just a nice way for you to analyze those two stores against each other, and then maybe make some corrections. And then a new thing that we've introduced is the shelf report. I just kind of threw in a couple of graphs here to show what that looks like. The shelf report is a semi-annual report card, basically, for your inventory. We take benchmarks across the market, the market being all your colleagues who use the analytics tools as well. So it's one of the early beta testers described it as the abacus report for your inventory, which I thought was pretty accurate. It sets, because we can show you, your turns are blank in literary fiction, and you're like, great, what does that mean? But the idea here is that we show you what it means, and you can see that in literary fiction, your turns are a little bit less than the average store. So it's a pretty cool way. So a lot of times, when we're comparing your inventory to itself, you're comparing, graphic novels to cookbooks, which isn't really apples. You're comparing apples to oranges, but within the same crate, I guess, if that makes sense. But this allows you to, go apples to apples. So super cool. People really love it. We really like it. We're excited about it, and it's fun to look at. And I should say it's fun if your report card looks good. If not, then you have plenty of opportunities to go and fix those things. Another nice thing is you can apply an analytics view to any list of titles. So whether it's a catalog or an older order, if you're ordering for summer 2019 right now, you can go back and look at your Random House Green summer 2018 order and see how it performed for you, and whether or not you brought stuff in that you regret now. Kind of some learning opportunities there for you. Also, you can, if you have tags or a collection or the buzz area, you can look at that through an analytic lens as well. Somebody had a great idea at Winter Institute of having a tag for your staff picks. So Bob's staff picks, Julie's staff picks, Sarah's staff picks, and then checking them out, see who performs best, see whose staff picks are moving and whose are there mostly just for show, and you can even gamify that. And that's what this store I was talking to is very excited about that idea. This month, whoever's staff picks have the highest turns or the most sales, or however you want to measure it, they get a bottle of wine or a pizza or whatever motivates your staff. It's just kind of a fun idea, and kind of helps drive home why your staff is there as well, I think. Also, as you're going through a catalog, you can turn on or off the analytics data, so you can see, at the top of each title, the market sold percentage, on-hand percentage, and on-order percentage. So, it can be helpful for front list. It's especially helpful for backlist. If you see, like actually looking at the Martian here, on hand, most stores are stocking this title. Not as many are selling it. It's kind of dying. It's been a number of years since that book came out, so that makes sense. But it just kind of helps you make those decisions on whether or not you want to bring a title in. Just like this, the peer data for each title, you can go in and see, how each title is selling at specific locations. It is still anonymous, as you're just going to see regions where these stores are, but it allows you to, if you see that, Dragons Love Tacos 2 is really only selling in the West, the East Coast isn't selling it at all, which isn't the case. But that's interesting information for you to know if you're an East Coast store or a West Coast store. So it's kind of a nice way for you to see, if you have those titles that you're hand selling like crazy, it's really nice to come in here and see how you're doing, because your store will pop up in the list here with its name. So you're going to know where you are on this list. And almost every store I've looked at has something that they're selling better than everybody else in the country. It could be a local author, possibly, most likely, but you also, you have those titles that are your titles, and you can see like really definitively what that means for that title. It's pretty cool and worth showing to publicists when you're trying to get an event as well. And you can also see sales trends for every title. So your on hand, year to year trends and how things are going can be a useful thing. You also have the opportunity to create email reminders. So it's a way for you to basically subscribe to a particular tool. So you can say, I want to look at the top 50 titles in my region in literary fiction, and send me an email of the things that I'm out of every month or every week. And it's kind of however often you want to see it. So you can create a few of those. I wouldn't create too many just because it gets noisy after a while. But a really nice way for the analytics tools to come to you rather than have you go to them, essentially. So the pricing, the Summit pricing is different than the Basecamp pricing. There's so much data here. So essentially, the store annual revenue column there, top row, we're looking at stores that do $500,000 or less in gross annual sales will pay $50 per month per store. Then as the sales increase, there's just the sliding scale there. Essentially, that's because stores that sell more and stock more send us more data to handle. And so it's a investment in infrastructure and that sort of stuff. So you can see where you land on that list there. If you're not sure, you can just email me, of course, and I can help you walk through that sort of thing. And I'm Joe at AboveTheTreeline.com. You can also go to AboveTheTreeline.com, and you go directly to it by doing retail-edelweiss.analytics. And down at the bottom, you see 2 roads to travel, the Basecamp or the Summit, and you can click Learn More there, and then you'll see more information and also spots to register for those. Of course, we provide lots of training. We do webinars all the time. This is the last of a block of webinars that we've done in the last month. We did one on the shelf report. We've done one on how to use the Summit tools, and you can find those by just going to help.edelweiss.plus and clicking on training up at the top, and you'll see a whole list of videos specifically for booksellers. And then you'll see upcoming webinars if we have some as well. And then also, if you are a subscriber to the analytics tools, if you click on help in the upper right-hand corner of any Edelweiss page, you'll see a help with Edelweiss Analytics, and I'll take you right to the help pages where you can see a rundown of how to use each tool and why, usually. And if you have any questions, support at AboveTheTreeline.com will go to me as well as about 5 or 6 other people. That's usually your best bet to get the quickest help. And that's what we have for today. So thank you so much for joining in today. Again, if you do have questions, support at AboveTheTreeline.com is your best bet. And let us know if you have anything that you want to know. Thank you. You guys have a great day.